Welcome back to Smoky Ribs. In today's video, I'm taking brisket and I'm taking my Jack Daniel's barbecue baked beans and we are marrying them together. We're doing brisket and beans. Stay tuned. So I'm going to start these beans at the exact same time the brisket. Actually, I'm doing a brisket point, the point only. And so I'm thinking maybe 5 to 6 hours. I'm putting the beans on at the exact same time because instead of 300, where I would normally cook these at 300 degrees, instead I'm going to be around 250. So they're going to take longer, and there's nothing like really slow cooked beans. And if they happen to get ready before the brisket, then they're in cast iron. I got a Dutch oven right here in front of me, and we're going to start in that right now. I've got 2 pounds of the great northern white beans that were dry. I have soaked them overnight. We're going in the Dutch oven. Just going to spread these around. Into this, I've got 2 medium onions that I've chopped up. 2 green bell peppers. You could also use red if you want more of a sweeter bell pepper. 2 cans of tomato sauce. Into that, we've got 4 ounces of tomato paste. Now this is a 6-ounce can, so I'm just estimating. If you go a little under, a little over, no big deal. That looks pretty close right there. That tomato paste is really thick, but it will break down and mix in well once everything gets hot. I've got another video out on Jack Daniel's barbecue baked beans. This is basically the same recipe, but I am making a few twists on this. And for one, I'm doubling the recipe because the way I'm doing this with the meat incorporated, this is really a one-pot meal. So the next ingredient is take you a hot sauce, like a Louisiana hot sauce, a Crystal, even Tabasco would work, more of a mild hot sauce. You don't want nothing really with a lot of heat, and I got a mild sauce here, and we're going in with 2 tablespoons. It adds a really nice flavor to it without giving it any spicy flavor, very little if anything. Now you can use molasses for this, you can use a sorghum syrup. In this case, today I'm using Steam's cane syrup. Any 3 will work. I particularly like molasses the best, but I'm out of molasses. But by the time all this is said and done, I promise you there's not going to really be any noticeable difference. But you can use any that you want. That is 1 1/4 cups. Now we got Worcestershire sauce going in, 4 tablespoons. And keep in mind, I'm doubling this recipe. So if you want to make half of this, just do everything that I'm doing here and cut it by half. Now in with the good stuff. I don't have a whole lot left here, so I bought another little half pint. And what I want to end up with is somewhere around 2 cups of Jack Daniel's. And I know some of you are going to be cringing over that. Now that said, if you want to do a little bit different type of bean recipe, then use beer, like a Mexican type beer. Alright, we got 2 cups of Jack Daniel's Black going in. And don't for a minute think that these beans are going to taste like Jack Daniel's, because they absolutely will not. You won't even detect Jack Daniel's, but what you are going to detect is a fantastic flavor in these beans. Now I've got just some plain yellow mustard going in. I've got 1 whole cup. Last ingredient is beef broth. I'm going in with 3 cups. I'm going to start with 2 cups, then add a third. Now once we get outside on the smoker, this is going to be uncovered, so it will be evaporating and reducing during this entire process. So it probably once an hour I will have to go back and add more of this to get the liquids back up so it can continue to cook until the beans are really, really tender. So I'm going to go ahead and put this last cup in. And you really can't overdo it at this point for reasons I just said. All right, I'm just going to take and mix all this really well, get a good mix on it, And the next time you see this pot of beans, it's going to be outside on the smoker. All right, now I had forgotten one key ingredient. I kind of jumped the gun on that. Turbinado sugar, or you can use brown sugar. Either one will work. I really like the turbinado. I've already poured it in, as you can see right here. That's 2 cups. Take a look at this little brisket point. Actually, it's a pretty good size brisket point. It's got a nice thickness to it, as you can see right there. Nice marbling. I'm going to be using this TX brisket rub from Killer Hogs. I'm reading the label on this. It's got some granulated garlic and onion and parsley. Obviously, it's got black pepper and salt in it. So it's almost like an SPG, or actually a kicked up SPG. And this is a really thick cut of meat. So we're going to put a nice heavy layer across the top, the bottom, the sides. Now this thing is ice cold. It just come out of the refrigerator. And I'm just going to leave it at room temperature while I'm getting the pit started. Let's give all that a good pat down. Like I said, I'm going to do the remainder of this, and I'm not going to bore you with that. We'll see you at the smoker. Oh, hang on one second. The beans. You might have noticed I have not salted them yet. The broth, the beef broth, carries a lot of salt, and that's about it. I know I'm going to have to add salt and pepper. Once we get it out there on the smoker, I will do some adjustment with that as well, and also throughout the cook. I just lit up a chimney full of charcoal to be as a bed to get my wood started in my fire basket there here in the Lone Star Grill's offset. Now, as I told you earlier, I hadn't seasoned this any, so we're going to take some salt. We're not going in real heavy yet. Probably somewhere around a half a teaspoon salt. I've got some coarse black pepper. And as I said, I will be adjusting as we go. I just want to go ahead and get the initial salt in there. You got the salt from the broth. Normally I would have bacon in this, but instead of bacon, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that brisket and put it right above this on that top rack. Now, I had to raise that top rack out of its track because I forgot that this Dutch oven had legs on it. I need a slick bottom Dutch oven really to do this with. So keep that in mind if you try doing this on an offset. All I really want to do is just let that brisket smoke, get some smoke, and drip that fat into these beans. It's going to be ever so good. And at some point I might wrap and I might not. I haven't decided. I will be wrapping with a butcher paper if I do, so I can continue to develop the bark. But if I feel like expediting this cook and speeding things up, I will do a wrap at some point. But right now we're just going to focus on getting this fire going, get the heat up. The beans are already in place, so I'm actually going to leave this lid open until we get the wood in here. I don't want this bad smoke getting in these beans. Got my pit up to 225 degrees, just raised the lid on this. I've got this brisket point, the brisket decal as it is also referred to. We're just going to place this on the top rack right above these beans. That fat is going to render in these beans, going to add a really great flavor to it on top of what's already there. I'm going to keep a check on this. It's way up high in the smoker, which means, you know, heat rises. So I'll check it here in about an hour and see how we're doing. All right, I'm running about 230 degrees on the Lone Star grills. So we're gonna take a look. Been going 1 hour exactly. All right, brisket's looking good. Looks like I need to spritz it, but I'm not gonna do that right this minute. What I am gonna do is I've got 8 cloves of garlic that should have went into this earlier. And that was another thing I forgot to add, but no problem. We'll just go ahead and add that in now. Stir that around. We haven't even came up to a simmer yet. Like I said, very low temperatures. So that's the reason I wanted to put these beans on at the exact same time as this brisket. All right, we got a good mix on that. Now, probably around the halfway point on these beans, I'm going to be adding some crushed pineapple as well. Now, that's totally optional. These are fantastic without it. But the last time we made them, we did add the crushed pineapple. Really good. All right, so we've been 4 hours at this, and about hour and a half, 2 hours ago, I noticed this big crack right here on the side of the door. I'm like, what? I said, man, that's always a tight seal. So it took me a little bit to figure it out what it is. That top grate we took out of the track and put on top of the track. It is barely hitting that grate, holding it off. But what's amazing is the temperatures that I'm running. I have still been, well, I first was at 250 riding like that for the longest time. And I decided to crank it up to 275 because these beans are taking a long time to get simmering, which I knew they would at that temperature. And that's the main reason why I put them on along with the brisket at the same time, because normally if you do these in the oven at 300 degrees, you're done start to finish in 3 hours, and they already been going 4 hours, and I haven't even had to add any more beef broth or anything. But we're going to take a look right now. We're going to go ahead and get this pit opened up. Boy, that brisket is looking fine. Let's do a quick temp check on that. Bark's setting up really nice. I'm at 154 internal on that, so we still got a long ways to go. You can see the juice coming out of that. Right now, what I want to do is pull these beans out and give them a stir and just see what we're looking like. Oh, you can see the smoke on top of them. That fat has been rendering on this for a while now. Now these beans have a long way to go still too. Because I think we've got enough fat in there. I'm gonna go ahead and remove this brisket, and I'm gonna set it off to the side here on the opposite end. And I'm gonna take this rack out all together. That way I can get a good seal on my door. Not that it really matters, but it just kind of bugs me, if you know what I'm saying. All right, the rack is out of the way. The beans are looking good. Now what I'm gonna do, I had thought about wrapping that brisket. I'm not gonna wrap it. I'm gonna close this thing up. We're gonna let it keep rocking. I'm gonna have my temperature somewhere between 275 to 280 at this point. The brisket's doing great. I've only spritzed it that one time, and you can see how moist it looks. Let's go ahead and close our lid. Oh yeah, there's that seal I'm looking for right there. All right, so I'm gonna check on the fire, bring this thing up, like I said, about 275 to 280, and it's a real slow cook. And these beans are gonna be extra good because of it. And if it does reduce down to the point that I need to add any kind of liquid, I will go with more beef broth, and that's it. We'll be back. We have been going exactly 5.5 hours. Let's take a look. Ooh-wee, smelling good in the hood. All right, we're gonna give these beans a stir. Man, that's looking fine right there. They're a long ways still. It's like I told you, you can do these at 300, 325, about 3 hours is all it takes. It took a good 3.5 hours to get this big pot of beans up to a simmer. And as you can see, it's got a nice simmer. So I think we've probably been going about half that time, you know, the 3 hours since it's been up to a simmer. I'm gonna taste this real quick. Oh, that's got a really good flavor. Just a little bit more salt. A touch more. And that's gonna be about it on the salt. A little bit more black pepper. All right, now I've got the pineapple. This is crushed pineapple. I've got a 20-ounce can going in. Now I'm gonna go ahead and leave the juice with it. It is steadily evaporating. There we go. There's our pineapple. Let's stir that in. That bark is looking great. It's completely set. Let's just see what our temperature is doing here. Run about 182, 174, 178. So normally on a beef brisket, especially the point around 200 to 210, it's going to be starting to get in range. And I want that real dark bark. I want that crispy dark bark, and man, it's got a fantastic bark developing on it. And keep in mind, some of this brisket's going into these beans, and the rest of it will be burnt ends to eat alongside of it. But I think you might can see why I'm doing beans like this. I could have had these things knocked out a long time ago, but I wanted the smoke flavor. I wanted them to cook at the same rate that the brisket's cooking, and we're pulling that off 100%. So I'll bring you back probably about time we're done. So I'll see you then. All right, we had a little technical difficulties. Sorry you didn't get to see me cut into the meat, but the brisket is done. It's still hot. I did let it rest, but as you can see, we got a nice smoke ring, plenty of juice. Look at that. And what I've done is I started taking, and I'm just cutting this up into little bite-sized pieces here, little miniature pieces. And ooh. All right, so we are done. Here's the beans. Here's the finished product. As you can see, these are nice and thick. There's nothing watery about them. And like I said, these beans cooked the entire time that this brisket point did, right at 8 hours. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. If you don't want to have your beans cooked that long in an offset, then you could put them in a different style cooker, or perhaps even just put them on a smoker long enough to get 2 or 3 hours smoke, then transfer them to the oven. Then at the end, you take your diced up brisket point, and I think I've done enough. I used half that point, by the way. I still got half left, and I just cut that into squares for like brisket burnt ends. And I'm not going to take them outside and do the barbecue sauce thing or anything, man. They're great all by themselves. But we're just going to mix that meat into these beans. This is a one-pot meal, man. I'm telling you, this is where it's at. This is fantastic. So I'm going to mix that in, getting ready to plate up a bowl here. And I'll give you a little taste. All right, it's been a long day, but hey, here's the payoff right here. Let's give these beans a try. Still piping hot, as you can see. Maybe I'm overshooting my bite here. All right, here we go. Perfect consistency. Don't need a spoon. You can use a fork. Oh. Hot. Oh, man. Absolutely fantastic. Now, I've done the Jack Daniel's baked beans on another video all by itself without the brisket. It was just a side for one of the cooks, but I'm telling you, you add this brisket into this, you've got a one-pot meal. All you need maybe is some crusty, buttered up garlic French bread to go on the side. You got yourself a fine meal. I hope you enjoyed the video and learned something from this. And like I said, there's other ways of doing this where it don't take as long. The brisket's going to take what it takes. And that was my whole idea for doing the beans in the smoker, because I started them at the same time knowing it would take a long time on that offset. But hey, it worked out. Everything was done at the same time. Very happy with it. Until next time, smoke your ribs.